Yo, and welcome back to the Coin Flip Podcast YouTube channel. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly. We love to do these reactions. NBA free agency. It's been crazy, but it looks like it's on the downside. A lot of the major guys have been signed. There's still a couple names yet. We don't know what's going to happen. We'll wait for those, to find their new team, but we're going to go with the ones that we have uh, already in the books. So, I'm Jacob. That's Martin. Martin,
What's up?
what are we getting into today?
Well, let's talk about some NBA free agents first, and then Jacob. As much as I love to tease you about your Carolina Panthers, and I do it all the time on a Sunday, and when I find out the Carolina Panthers are playing a certain team, I'm like, oh, I can't wait. But we got to talk about a certain player they traded for today because this might be a big move, and we're gonna have to figure out what happens from there. So,
Do you want me to do the Baker Mayfield spiel now, or do you want me to wait till the end?
go ahead. I'll let you go now.
All right. All right. I'm gonna try to keep this under 3 to 5 minutes.
I'll give you
All
five
right.
minutes.
I don't have anything written down, so this is all off the dome, but I've been thinking about it all day.
I'll give you 5 minutes.
Um, so Baker Mayfield to the Carolina Panthers from the Cleveland Browns. We are dishing them back a conditional fifth round pick, I believe, for next year or the year after that. So, Martin, I'm going to start this off by saying this is a lose-lose trade, and hear me out, right? I've been a Panthers fan all my life. I have a Panthers shirt on right now, actually. Um, I've been to over a dozen games. I grew up in Raleigh. I have a pretty good understanding of this franchise. I know this franchise better than any other sport, you know. So the thing the first thing I'm thinking of when it comes to Baker Mayfield is that do we want to be a championship level team? Now, I'm going to make a comparison here, Martin. I think that the now while we're not going to talk about the Gobert trade today, I think the Timberwolves trading for Rudy Gobert is kind of similar to the Panthers trading for Baker Mayfield. And hear me out. Hear me out. From the Timberwolves side of things, they are trying to compete, right? They have never won squat in the NBA, just like the Panthers have never won a championship, a Super Bowl in the NFL. They've been close, they've been trying to do it. And the comparison I'm going to make is it's a bad franchise reaching a little bit too far to try to compete. While the Panthers didn't give up hardly anything, the Timberwolves gave up a lot. Now, here I'm going to get into this for the NFL side. Uh, Carolina was projected about 6 wins. In my eyes, I think about in a Vegas eyes as well, somewhere around that range. 6 wins, that is poor. That is maybe last in the division. That is gearing yourself up for a top 10 pick in the draft, no doubt. Now, Martin, over the last couple of years, Matt Rule has been the coach of the Carolina Panthers. Rule came in to kind of an interesting situation, a rebuild, but when you look at the records, they've won pretty much 5 games each of the last couple of seasons, and it hasn't really turned around quite yet. While the defense is building up, you have an aging running back in Christian McCaffrey. He can't stay healthy. When he's healthy, he's one of the top 3 backs in football in my eyes, but fantasy owners are staying away from him for a reason. So you add a guy like Baker Mayfield, and I want to go back to Teddy Bridgewater there a couple of years ago. Bridgewater came in as an average quarterback, maybe a little bit below average, similar to where Baker Mayfield ranks in terms of quarterbacks in the NFL, and we were a mediocre team. Now, here's the thing, Martin. In my eyes, there's something called no man's land. No man's land to me in the NBA and the NFL is when you are a decent team that no matter what will never be good enough to win a championship, but they're going to be too good for them to actually tank and get a good draft pick. And here's where the Panthers' problem lies. The Panthers were going to either start Sam Darnold or eventually have to give into their new rookie, Matt Corral. Now, if we're going to take a rookie, in the first couple rounds of the draft that's a quarterback, I want to see him get some actual snaps. And signing Baker or trading for Baker does not allow for that. I'm a believer that you cannot win a Super Bowl in this day and age unless you have a top 10 quarterback. And in my personal opinion, I don't see Baker Mayfield ever becoming a top 10 quarterback, and you can argue he's already reached his ceiling on the Browns. So, with that being said, the Panthers are going to win about 7, 8, 9 games this year, probably just miss the playoffs, and more importantly, they will miss out on CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Two guys who one day probably might just become top 10 players that we will not be able to tank for because of this Baker Mayfield trade. Now, I would love to see Mayfield totally pop off and become a great player, and our defense is young and up and coming and already top 10. But the timelines just don't match up here. I think Baker Mayfield's an average quarterback. We're looking at a Jimmy Garoppolo situation on the 49ers, except the Panthers aren't the 49ers, and there's no Debo Samuel to be found on this team. So, as for the other side of things, Cleveland is completely screwed. They don't have a backup plan. Their quarterback is a sex offender, terrible person. The Browns and the Panthers, I believe, are in a lose-lose situation. Martin, am I wrong?
Yes, that's just as plain as way as I can say it. 100%. I don't know where you went with that one, but yeah, I. Here's my thing. All right, I've been through this carousel before with quarterbacks, with the Bears. These ideas of these great quarterbacks, or these old past great quarterbacks, or these quarterbacks with a decent pass, or had one great season, and we signed them, and we're thinking, oh, we're gonna have a savior, and it doesn't work out, and you try and try and try until you get it right, and I think my Bears got it right with Justin Fields. All I gotta say here, Jacob, is this: I saw a tweet today, a tweet with this as the tweet for the Carolina Panthers, their situation. You cut Cam, then you signed Teddy Bridgewater, and then you traded for Sam Darnold. You traded away Teddy Bridgewater. You tried to bring back Cam Newton. You drafted Matt Corral, and now you just traded for Baker Mayfield. I don't know where you guys are going. I don't know what Matt Rule's doing. I don't know what the new ownership or the new general manager are doing. But it seems like a bunch of moves to, clog up like a boat that's sinking. Instead of just fixing the entire thing and bringing it back up, you guys are just trying to fill so many holes so that the boat doesn't completely sink. I think sitting around that
Kind
sixth.
of what I was saying. I think Matt Rule literally is just trying to save his job because he's going to get fired if they don't win more than 5 games this year.
Probably. And I think he should. I just don't think he's an NFL football coach. I mean, if you look back at his career in college football, he made programs that look like nothing into something. He has that skill.
Yeah.
But in the NFL, you can't just make nothing into something because there's too many of other people making nothing into something, and they'll match you with what the something they have. In college, you can outdo people with that. You can make nothing into something and outdo other teams because they're not in the same position you are. But the NFL, they're always trying to match up. They're always trying to be equal. It's a copycat league. Everybody's trying to catch up, and you can't get away with that in the NFL these days. So anyway,
I like it. I like it.
I like your rant. I like the idea, but I don't. I look at it a different way. But nonetheless, Jacob, let's turn my hat over from the expert to the questionnaire here, and let me have you turn your hat on to be the vet, to be the know-it-all in this one. Let's talk about the NBA free agency. A lot of money moved around. A lot of big deals were made. Let's talk about some big ones
Yeah.
first. First one, Bradley Beal, 5 years, $251 million. Zach LaVine, 5 years, $215 million. You had Nikola Jokic at 5 years, 264. Devin Booker at 4 years, 224. Zion
Mm.
at 5 years, 193. And John Morant got the same deal at 5 years, 193. These big contracts, Jacob, are just getting ginormous every single year. Nikola Jokic, one of the first players to crack over $250,000. Are these deals
Quarter of a billion.
quarter
A
of a bill
billion.
quarter of a billion? I apologize, but nonetheless, this is getting ridiculous, isn't it?
Uh, I think it is going according to the business. Basketball in the NBA is a business. The collective bargaining agreement, things like salary cap And it's really about just society and inflation, Martin. And as times move on, stuff costs more and more money, but that means you get paid more and more if you are an NBA player.
That's
And
true.
so I think Nikola Jokic, we'll start off with him making the most money. Uh, MVP level player pretty much every year. He's won it a couple times. Book, while he was a nice, I think Jokic is the probably the main story of the offseason as far as who got the absolute bag. Although I think Booker's is worth a little bit more in terms of per year. Jokic, this was expected. I mean, he's going to stay on the Nuggets. He's going to be a baller. I would keep an eye out for the Denver Nuggets to compete for the NBA championship probably in about 2 years or so, given that Jamal Murray is as healthy as he can be. Michael Porter Jr. might get back to 100%. It looks like out there in Denver, they know what they're doing as far as signings and developing players. So, Jokic, good signing bringing him back.
I agree with you on that one with Jokic. He's just so talented. He's such a skilled big man. He's gonna have a good time in Denver. They're gonna have a lot of fun with that team. I think you're right. In a couple years, they'll be good contenders. I just want to spiel on Zach LaVine for a couple seconds because it's the Chicago
Go for
Bulls,
it.
one of my home teams. This is a deal that I think is one of the better deals of the entire free agency, but also one of the ones you're gonna have to watch out for because I love Zach LaVine and I love that he's a great player and he's a great dunker and he's got the ability to just electrify crowds with his ability to score, but it's also at an inconsistent rate sometimes. I see 29 points, then the next night I see 4 points. Then I go and see a 37-point game, then I see only 15 points the next night. So we'll see how this one ages out. I think this is one of the bigger deals that might have a question mark on it, might be a success, but I mean, am I crazy here, Jacob?
For Levine,
Yes.
Zach Levine, I think there was a little bit of rumors that maybe he was going to go to another team. I think Laker Nation just ran wild with a clip from a few years back of him saying, "Oh yeah, playing with LeBron would be wonderful." But Levine re-signing the Bulls, this is a good move. Levine is their cornerstone of the franchise. I think the questions as far as the Chicago Bulls more lie around guys like Lonzo Ball and how long can DeMar DeRozan play at this level and what will Patrick Williams turn into, yada, yada, yada. But for Levine, it's good to see the loyal fans, people who love the loyalty. Levine was a good signing for the Bulls to get him back.
All right, let's take a trip down to the desert here for a second. 4 years, 224 for Devin Booker, the team that had the most wins but got completely wiped by the Dallas Mavericks in the second round. Is it a good deal, bad deal?
Evan Booker. Okay. D Book, I mean, you got to resign him. I mean, you're not just going to let him walk.
No.
You win all those regular season games. Great player. While he can improve definitely on the defensive end, he was one of my premier MVP candidates this season. I thought you could make the argument he was actually the MVP based off of how many team wins he had. Anyway, Devin Booker, I'm not too worried about it. The only question here with the Suns is really Chris Paul. Like, can Chris Paul still be? Can he still be what he wants to? I know KD is in the mix. Maybe he'll force his way a D Book trade, but as for now, I think this is one of the most predictable signings of the offseason. D Book back to the Suns.
All right, let's talk about the two draft picks that were in the 2019 draft. Zion Williamson, John Morant, 1 and 2 in that draft. Both signed 5 years, 193 with the teams that drafted them. Zion just, I don't know, playing about 2/3 less games because of random injuries, while John Morant has taken his team to the second round of the playoffs. Good deal, bad deals?
John Morant, that's a great deal, no question about it. Making All NBA already, one of those young up and coming faces of the league. No question about John Morant at all. Zion's the interesting one here because a lot of people were suspecting that he might not re-sign with them. He would maybe be the first one to turn down that offer after just a couple seasons and test some free agency. However, nope, he's back to the Pelicans, and I think it's a good place for him as for right now. While I think a lot of people can predict Zion in the future will be on a different team, New Orleans, I think Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, they have some nice pieces around him. And I'm really excited. Zion Williamson is probably very high on my list in terms of players I'm looking forward to seeing this season the most. Maybe alongside Anthony Davis or someone like that, seeing how can they respond from the injuries they've had? It looks like Zion has lost some of that baby fat he's had on him, leaning down just a bit. Don't want to say too much as far as what I expect him to do. Is I think I might make a separate video on Zion, but if you're New Orleans, you definitely had to re-sign him, and it's good they got him back.
John Moran's deal, I love. John Moran is so exciting to me, and why I love him so much because he reminds me of so much of that young Russell Westbrook, that electrifying, that just jumps out of the gym ready to play. Like, it's all about going on to the court and playing the game, nothing else. And it's just fun to watch. Zion, Jacob, you have so much positivity and outlook for him, and I do too. I want Zion to have a great career. I don't want him to be, a Greg Odom type story where it was so much hype and it didn't live up to it. I want to see him do successfully, but I'm one of the people that has all the question marks around him. Can he actually stay healthy? Does he actually want to play? Does he want to be in New Orleans? And yes, the signing the deal says it that he wants to be there, but how many people do you know would turn down 193 right on the spot? And a deal that could go from 193 to 231, no one's turning that down that I know has any common sense. So I want to see what Zion does. I want to see him, make improvements. Can he be the most improved player? I would love to see him win that award. Can he try to make an all-star team? Can he try to, be in the all-star dunk contest? Can he actually get New Orleans to the playoffs and make them competitive? I want to see if he can actually do it because I haven't seen it yet.
I think the guy we should talk about is Bradley Beal. Uh, Bradley Beal re-signing. I kind of expected this. I had called into 97.7 in St. George and talked a little bit about NBA stuff. And I was mentioning how I thought Bradley Beal was probably going to re sign, and he did. He had had the opportunity earlier in his career to leave. He kept re signing. It looks like he's one of those guys alongside Damian Lillard who just doesn't really have much interest in leaving his town. I think he's got a lot of things going for him. He's probably really initiated himself with the community. The money's good. He's having the mindset of, okay, probably sometime before the end of my prime, the Wizards can find a way to get a second star. However, that's a tough ask for Washington. It's not exactly a free agency spot. I don't think they really have much to trade for a big star like KD. But Brad Beal, probably the out of everyone that we're going to talk about today, was most expected to perhaps leave for a bigger team. Instead, he stays, and Wizards fans can celebrate. However, Beal is kind of in no man's land right now, so. He's going to just keep collecting the paycheck, and the Wizards are going to keep collecting L's.
Yeah, I would love to have seen Bradley Beal maybe tested that idea of bigger money, like the KD thing when he signed with Golden State, which was a 2-year, $44 million. Still get good money and still get paid a top dollar price that most people are getting paid per salary per year. But make it a shorter deal and still keep your options open. Apparently, he wants to stay in Washington, and I can't blame the dude. If he's wants to stay there, he can stay there, and if they can find a way to build a team around him, they'll find a way to build a team around him. All right, Jacob, let's talk about some smaller deals here. Speaking of the Clippers, or speaking of other teams, John Wall, 2 years, $13 million to the Clippers. PJ
Oh
Tucker,
yeah.
3 years, $33 million to Philly. TJ Warren takes a 1 year deal with Brooklyn, and Gordon Dragic takes a 1 year deal with Chicago. Just those four deals right there. We'll get into a couple other guys here in a second, but just between those four deals, good deals, bad deals, is it all kind of a mix?
I think John Wall is the most interesting one because this is a signing that we could say, okay, this is a contending team, and they're adding another interesting piece. John Wall, with that $47 million contract, bad asset. John Wall, $13 million, great asset. I
Very
mean,
true.
this guy, I think he still has something left in the tank. was super popular in my hometown growing up. He's from Raleigh. John Wall, I think he's going to be a nice backup point guard. While they do have a lot of other guards on the team who are going to get minutes over him, guys like Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, et cetera, Luke Kennard, you can go on and on. Wall is maybe the only guy you can say, okay, he's a trusted veteran point guard, not a guy who's looking to score. He can play the actual point guard. And I think Wall can give you maybe about 8 points, 6 assists, in about 14 minutes or so off the bench, and that's about all you need from John Wall.
Yeah, I agree with you. Over to Tucker real quick. I think
Yep.
this is more of a defensive move for a defensive move, a more tough move for Philly. I get it. They want someone to kind of take some pressure off of Joel Embiid down low, and PJ Tucker is a complete and total nuisance when he's down low, and he annoys the hell out of everybody when he's down there. I mean, him, Williams from Boston, and Draymond Green, obviously from Golden State. They know how to play that role really well. Tucker knows how to do that. Over to Philly with this. I mean, he's 37. I get it. Suck up the last few
And
years.
that was the point I wanted to make, Martin. 37 years old for PJ Tucker.
Yeah,
He's no longer the defender he was in Houston. While it was a smart move from Philly, I'm just questioning how much PT is he actually going to get in meaningful playoff games.
yeah. Smaller deals. TJ Warren 1 year to Brooklyn. I think this is a good deal. Obviously, the hype and the buzz that he got when he played in the bubble and how good he was. That sprint, that stint with Indiana. I think this is actually a good move for Brooklyn because if he shows anything what he was in the bubble, that's consistent shooting that you can either have in a starting role or off the bench, and that's offense that Brooklyn needed because it was only Kyrie and KD last year.
Martin, remind me if you have the numbers in front of you for TJ Warren to Brooklyn. Do you know what the contract was?
Let me look at it. I could probably find it.
As you're looking it up, I'll give my 2 cents on this. I think Brooklyn, if they get rid, it's looking like they're going to get rid of KD and Kyrie. If they do so, they'll probably trade TJ Warren at the deadline or the end of the year, and they'll try to just go full tank mode because TJ Warren, if his contract isn't too big, which I don't think it will be, some other team will want to scoop him up that maybe is trying to make a push into the playoffs.
Yeah, it doesn't say how much money, but it just says a 1 year deal. That's all the information I got on that one. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, Gordon Dragic to Chicago.
Yep.
I think this was a good offensive move for Chicago. They have some scoring that can come in there. I know Dragic isn't the same player anymore, and I get that his time in Miami kind of came to an end as well because they really did not play him. But I think he still can offer something. I think he's still a good offensive option off the bench. I don't know about his defense, but I need some offense in Chicago.
Yep, another nice piece for Chicago. They're trying to get every single last win they can out of this current group and try to compete as best they can. Some other deals I've seen, Patty Mills, forget where he ended up. Lou Dort, he's going to re-sign with OKC.
Yep.
Their payroll will one day be a problem down the line, I suspect.
I
Anthony Simons resigns. That one's not a shocker. But
no.
Jalen Brunson, Martin, might be the biggest.
I
Might be
told
the
you
biggest. I don't know how to explain it.
the biggest head scratcher, the biggest what are
The
you
biggest head scratcher.
the biggest
Yeah.
what are you
Uh,
doing? The biggest are you kidding me? The biggest why did you pay him that much money? The biggest
and
are
they signed the deal before free agency started, and now the NBA is going to crack down on the New York Knicks and give them some sort of punishment.
yeah, you can't
But
tamper that much before the deadline, before the opening. I mean, seriously, it wasn't. I don't think it was more than a minute before it opened, and we already heard about the deal locked up. I'm like, what?
and you're tampering for Jalen Brunson. I mean,
Brunson, really? I get it. Brunson is another T.J. Warren type story where he had a good stint. It looked good enough to give him a contract, but it was only a couple games in the playoffs. At least with T.J. Warren, it was 10 games. It was enough to actually see something. With Brunson, It was average basketball in the regular season, and he turns it on for a couple games in the playoffs, and that's that. Like, okay, you want to give him $104 million? Good luck, New York.
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't think it wasn't a massive overpay because I think another team would have maybe offered him the same amount. I think the Mavericks were kind of a little caught off guard. But yeah, Brunson, following his dad to New York. Uh, yeah,
And
what are I don't know. The Knicks
uh,
are really confusing because they're yet another team in what I call no man's land, where I feel like they have some decent pieces, but I don't think RJ Barrett, as good as he could one day be, he's not going to be able to carry this franchise to a championship. Brunson could improve a lot as well, but I think the Knicks are using this move to get into the playoffs again. But it's going to be a first round exit, no doubt about it.
all right, let's wrap up. Let's talk about these last two ones before we wrap up everything. The defending champs, they bring one back, they lose one. Kevon Looney comes back for 3 years, $25 million. Gary Payton takes a trip up north to go to Portland for 3 years, $28 million. So they almost got about
Mm.
the same type of money. They weren't too far off there. Payton will make $9,333,000, while Looney makes $8.5 million next year. What are you thinking about these signings, Jacob, from the defending champs?
I I'm thinking that the Warriors were not able to bring them both back. Now, I'm not looking at the numbers in front of me, but it was a situation where Gary Payton's story is absolutely insane. He was about to quit basketball, been in and out of like the G League, been a ton of teams, cut by the Warriors a couple times, and he shows up big in the playoffs, gets hurt, comes back, gives you good production. Probably the guy in the league who you can say hustles the best out of anyone. I mean,
Yep,
we know who his dad is for crying out loud.
true.
Uh, but GP2 going to the Portland Trailblazers, he got his money. He got his money. That's what he was wanting. Martin, he's older than you think for sure. And so
29.
he was definitely looking to secure the bag rather than sign on a minimum deal for the Warriors again. And as fun as it is to compete, if you've been grinding your butt off for all those years and you finally win a championship, I mean, that championship is in the history books forever. Maybe one day he can come back to Golden State or another contending team, but congrats to Gary Payton for getting his money. As for Kevon Looney, I think he was slightly more valuable to the Dubs because they need all the big men that they can. If you watch the finals, you would know what I'm talking about.
True.
Kevon Looney, he's kind of that old school big. He can't shoot it all, but he does just enough for you in terms of cleaning up the glass, getting those putbacks, a bit of a lob threat, although that's not really the Warriors' style. But yeah, I think the Warriors had a good off season, and we'll have to see if they do anything with any of their young core.
I think I agree with you on the Gary Payne being 29 and a half. I can see it. I mean, he's bounced around way too many times with way too many teams, and he got himself a good break, and he got himself a championship, and congrats to the guy. And if Portland, I don't think this makes them like a true contender. I don't think they're going to.
No.
I don't no. I mean, like this doesn't like improve them to go from like nothing to something. But if they somehow make some other good moves, if somehow they find a way to convince KD to go to Portland, which is completely out of the conversation, but just a hypothetical. But nonetheless, I think Gary Payton could have some fun in Portland. I mean, he's kind of a free, loose player. I mean, at this point, he's got the championship. No one can say anything else about
he
him.
he fits really well alongside Dame, like he did with Curry, because
Exactly.
I mean, Damian Lillard is not exactly a very good defender, and so if your other guard can be one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA, that's good.
On top of that, the double teams won't be on Damian Lillard so much, so he can actually have some fun shooting a little bit from the 3 point line. On Looney, yeah, this was a big move that they had to make. This is interesting to me because this also says that I don't think Golden State is completely convinced that Wiseman can take the next step of being that big man they need in the middle. Otherwise, they probably would have gotten. They probably would have either told Looney to, go somewhere to let him go into free agency and sign with someone else. But they brought him back on 3 years, not on a 1 year deal, not on a 2 year deal, on a 3 year deal. I think this is also leaving to the Warriors of Do we trust Wiseman? Can he get better, or should we just trade him at this point? So I love Looney. I love what he does, but I also think there's an underlining to that deal too.
That's a great point, Martin. I agree with that.
Alrighty then. Well, that is the Coin Flip Podcast episode. Jacob, I heard you say like 50 something. Like we've kind of been running with that joke. I think this is around over 100. I guarantee you we probably close down to 100 episodes. I guarantee you we're close to 100 at this point. I'm just saying.
I think the number doesn't even matter at this point. We're not even doing the real old school podcast. We're just ripping whatever whenever we want.
Exactly. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate it. Come back for another episode. Find us on YouTube, the Coin Flip Podcast. We put up an episode whenever we can. Me and Jacob. That's Jacob Zimmerman in. Jacob, where are you located? Because you're no longer in Utah, and I know you aren't in Raleigh, North Carolina. So where are you at?
It is sad. Me and Martin no longer live in the same town. Uh, I am right now in a place called Frederick, Maryland. I've been here for the past couple days. Before that, I spent about a month in North Carolina in a place called Valdez. So I'm kind of just all over the place until I land a job.
I like that. I like that. All right, Jacob. We'll talk to you another time. I appreciate it so much, man. Thank you, everyone. To everyone who listens to us, thank you guys. Appreciate it so much. Peace.
Peace.